under the stars. Got it. You're lying under the stars. You're 11 years old. It's night out. Maybe you should see a shooting star. You're full of dreams. What did you think what did you think you would do with your life? What did you imagine that you would be doing now? Maybe as a job, maybe just as a person. What are the things that when you thought about that were your fantasies? Marine biologist, writer. Oh, I love it. Architect. I'm going to put mine in there. I'm not even sure I'm spelling it right anymore. Diane Fossey minus the murder. Yeah, totally. Oh, wow. Secretary of State, Allie. Architect, Savita. Writer, Jane. Marine biologist, Marie. Oh, that's so cool. I wanted to be an astronaut. Haha, every elder millennial wanted to be a marine biologist. Oh, really? Oh, gosh, you have to tell me why later. So my next question for you, because we do represent some different ages here, is when do you remember? How old were you? What were you doing when you first realized climate change was a real thing that affected your life? Some of you might be so young that you don't remember when that happened because it was just a reality when you were little. I don't know. But I remember when I was sitting in a lecture and I was like, whoa, we all need to drop what we're doing and deal with this. So did you have an aha moment? 2008, I read an article in the New Yorker about ocean acidification. 2008. So how old were you, Jane? Do you remember?
Oh, I think I was like 41.
Okay, got it. Savita learned when I was 21, class on climate and policy in undergrad. College course at the Duke Marine Lab when you were in your 20s. Acid rain, sometimes as a kid in the 80s. Acid rain. Oh, remember that? Yeah. Okay. So I was sitting in college and had a lecture talk about how this was going to change human conflict. That's what he talked about. He talked about how global warming was going to change human conflict. And that's when it really struck me that this was a really big deal. High school learning about the hole in the ozone. Right. Okay, got it. So, I'm going to minimize that. Now, do you guys see my slides and me and each other?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, super. The slides are really unimportant. This is a conversation that's meant to be fun because it's your evening. So, I think that when you face climate change, the natural human psychological response to a threat that's so powerful and frankly so inevitable is withdraw, overwhelm, close down, shut down, all of those things. And there are lots of different psychological ways you can face it. You can sort of deny our chances of success. You can deny its existence. You can focus on positive small changes. You can, there's all different ways. And this story of my healthcare sustainability journey is really the story of how I got my mind to how I managed to fit the overwhelm of climate change into the overwhelm of being an OBGYN and a parent and juggle all of that and still move forward. I think, is everybody here an OBGYN? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, great. You're my target audience. Okay. So, I think I have to do this mode, which might change things. Okay. So, when I was lying and 11 years old looking up at the stars, first I thought I'd be an astronaut, and then Sally Ride went into space when I was around that age, and I was like, damn, I can't be the first. Well, it's not worth doing then. It's so dumb. And then I thought I'd be a marine biologist. And then I took one of these little things where you go through your mind, you like relax, you imagine what you're doing, And when you ended the end of this whole mind journey, what I envisioned myself doing was outdoor surgery. And that's what combined all the things I loved: body parts and anatomy and some blood and some excitement, but then being in the great outdoors. So that can't really happen, right? We hope not, except in our dreams where everything's unsterile and there actually isn't an OR, but you have to operate and you don't have gloves on. But in real life, We don't get to do it outside, sadly. So the confluence of these things. So as I was going through residency, you get the idea of like the kind of dreamy kid I was and how I truly love the outdoors. And then I found myself under fluorescent lights, surrounded by plastic, literally wrapped in plastic, hour after hour after hour. And I asked myself many times what I'm doing. Am I actually improving the planet? Is this a useful thing for me to be doing as much as I love women's healthcare? And so I started just taking pictures of trash. I think for most people interested in healthcare sustainability, that's what they first see. And that's what first upset me. So I just started taking pictures of operating room trash. Um, and then this is me in 2000 and this belly is now a 17-year-old. He's taking his SATs next week. Okay. So this is the picture I showed. So in my senior year of residency, when you get to give your own grand rounds, that's when I first actually got to do some action on this. And so I was finally like, oh my God, I don't have to discuss TBTs. I'm going to talk about healthcare sustainability. It wasn't even a thing. But so what I did is I looked at all of the trash streams at the University of Vermont, which is where I did residency, and I followed them where they went and did my grand rounds on it. And it was by far the most interesting thing that happened to me in residency. This slide is a little bit random in there, but we're going to kind of go through. This was the hospital waste stream. This was part of my grand rounds. It was really fun to go look back at this talk. So I was just looking at what the percentage of the waste streams are in a hospital system. And then I took pictures and blah, 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 and followed all the waste and talked about it. And everybody was like, oh my God, this is so cool. We never think about this. Wow. And then I graduated from residency and had to go work. So slightly out of order here. The one thing that always happens to me as the green physician is people think I know about lead poisoning or air pollution or, basically environmental health. And the truth is I'm not a public health expert. I don't really know that much about environmental health. What I know about is healthcare sustainability. And did you guys see this slide in one of your talks already, Allie, for this group?
No.
Okay, so I'm very proud of this slide. This really helps you get your brain around it because it's really important for this field to define itself. So on the left is my version of the earth, on the right is my version of humans, and then further to the right are healthcare providers. The humans produce all of these things, those gray things that then affect the atmosphere of the planet. And the medical system also produces a bunch of things that affect the atmosphere. So the field of climate medicine is what people usually think we know about if we're interested in the planet and healthcare. Climate medicine is a branch of public health. There are fellowships in this, which I wish I had done. In Colorado, they have one. And if you're not too old or too tied down, you should think about it. Climate medicine is studying the health effects of climate change. So these are infectious disease experts, emergency medicine docs. They're running around trying to find out, like, how does heat kill people? What is the mosquito going to look like once climate changes? When it rains really hard, how does that affect crops and malnutrition? So that's climate medicine. And that's our lane, right? Because we're doctors. And that's a branch of public health, obviously. Environmental sciences are all of the people who study that effect from humans on the planet. Ecologists, geologists, people who can do a lot of math, people who brought us the science of climate change. That's as a group, environmental sciences. Healthcare sustainability is actually a branch of that. And it's studying the impact on the planet of the practice of healthcare. When we spew our anesthetic gases out of the roof of the hospital, what effect is that having on the planet? Which is, by the way, a lot. And that field requires the same skills as somebody within environmental sciences, which, by the way, we don't have, right? Unless you happen to have a degree in this. And I don't. I just went straight through undergrad and medical school. I didn't get any other fancy degrees. So learning about climate change and sustainability is really auxiliary. We don't have any tools in our toolbox from med school for this. And I think that's a big barrier for doctors because we like to feel like we have a very high bar for our expectation of what knowledge is. And we don't think we know about this. And, just screw it. The thing is that we carry the moral authority in healthcare, and just read some books. And doctors are so smart. They get into and they get on top of this stuff so quickly. Like, really, you should not be intimidated by that at all if you're interested. And here you're here, so you're interested. So healthcare sustainability is what I do, not climate medicine. Because I'm doing healthcare sustainability, people want me to give talks about climate medicine. They want me to lead courses on it. And you know what? I just throw that stuff together and it works, so you can do both, but really healthcare sustainability is what I know about. Okay. So when I learned about all the trash things, I learned things like how landfill works. I didn't know that it's designed to not let trash break down. It's supposed to prevent decomposition. That's what actually a landfill does. So, when you throw compostable things in the landfill, it's not going to ever compost. So I finish residency and then I go to the Navajo reservation. Have any of you seen this Spider Rock?
No.
Anybody? Okay, so this Spider Rock is in Canyon de Chelly, which is in northeastern Arizona. I lived here. I rode horses in that canyon underneath that rock. That rock is where the Navajo people think humans came from. That's their sort of creation story. And they call it Spider Woman, who lives on top of that rock. And she created all of everything from on top of this rock. And it's so sacred, like you can't climb it or go near it. And in fact, to go into this canyon as a white person, you have to have a Navajo guide. So we would go down into this canyon only with a Navajo guide. And then there was one trail you could go on. It was super cool. But you guys, I was on call every fourth night. We did 800 deliveries a year, and I was nursing a baby every 2 hours. That embryo, that fetus you saw on the first slide now became a 2-year-old. And it was crazy. I mean, you guys remember your first 2 years in practice. Oh God, it was insane. So after those 2 years, my husband got a job in Pittsburgh and we moved here, where I became a faculty. And I went to the chair of the department. This is how this whole thing started. So on the Navajo reservation, survival mode. Okay. I get to Pittsburgh. My husband has this job. I have a 3-year-old now. And I just balls to the walls. I went to the chair. I had no publications. I was not interested in academia at all. I totally wanted to do outdoor surgery, basically. I go to the chair of the department and I was like, I want to do something with healthcare and the environment, and please hire me. And they really needed to hire faculty. And so I just got the job. That's literally what happened. I would never get it into, well, maybe now, but not a few years ago. So then I had a tiny bit of academic time my first few years, which I subsequently lost because you have to get grant funding and there is no grant funding in this field. So for a couple of years, I started out I didn't know anything about research or anything, but I was very eager. And so I started doing a few different little projects and they kind of built on each other. I'll go through a little bit of what we found from some of these things, but I don't want to get too bogged down in the details. But started with a waste project where we did a survey of OBGYN's attitudes. I wanted to know where OBGYN stood relative to the general population about climate change. And this is in a time when I started giving lectures and a third of the lecture had to be about why climate change mattered. Now we don't have to talk about it. Mother Nature took care of that part of the whole lecture is out the door. But I would talk about what it is, how it happens, how it's affecting everybody, blah, blah. And so we did this survey. We gave doctors chocolate if they filled it out, which chocolate works way better than doctors won't do anything for money but they will do things for chocolate, just a hot tip. So we got a really good response rate and it was all statistically significant, blah, blah, blah. And I worked with a resident. The great thing about where I am is there's all these super smart residents that can do math and research. And so Paula Duncan, a resident, did this. And basically what we found is that OBGYNs, I think I have it here. So this is a Gallup question. I think this one was, you can't even read it, but it was how bad is climate change? Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, OBGYNs are 20% ahead of the general population in terms of, is climate change anthropogenic? When is it happening? How bad is it? And then we asked them, do you want reusable or disposable surgical supplies if they're equivalent? And they said, we would prefer to use reusable if they're equivalent. And then if you ask them, are they equivalent? They're like, hell no, the disposable are way better. So it was just an interesting sort of which, they are those scissors are never sharp, the reusable ones. And so it just gave me a little bit of a okay, doctors do care kind of a thing. I used to start all my talks with these Earth planets and, you know, a lot of graphs of the temperature and all this like big time stuff. For tonight, I tried, it was so fun, Allie, since you asked me to do this, I got to like look back at all these old
Yeah.
talks I looked at, and I chose random picks because my kids were in them because
Yeah.
that would be more fun for all of us, but they are part of the story. Because it affected how this whole thing worked. So this was one slide I was trying to demonstrate how like, yeah, the temperature and the planet has only gone up by 1.5 degrees Celsius. That doesn't sound like much, but it's the extremes that matter. I was like, if you take my kid's head and you put it in an oven in the Arctic, the average might be like, you know, 98.6, but really both of those extremes is not good, whatever. Anyway, so there's one of the kids. That was the second child. Second child has been born by this point in the story. A lot of these talks were like things like no snowflake in an avalanche ever feels responsible. It was a lot of like personal responsibility. What things can you do? How can you, you know, think about your own footprint, blah, blah, blah. As the sort of research got a little more sophisticated, I went to our engineering department and I was like, I want to compare a vaginal delivery versus a C-section. And the male engineers were like, talk to her, because I said the word vagina. So they shuttled me into the office of the person who could handle the word vagina, which turns out to be this completely amazing, amazing researcher named Melissa Billick. In that picture, I'm in blue and she's sitting next to me. She's a civil engineer, and all these people behind us were grad students at the time. They've all done their PhDs, and now most of them are faculty doing this. And after I gave these engineers a tour of the OR, oh, I can't move it, but all these engineers, at the end of it, this cute little engineer, she goes up to me, she's like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And because people don't know how the hospital works, so it was fun for them. This picture is one of the engineers. He made, these are endotracheal stylets, like from the endotracheal tube. So we did this trash study on hysterectomies. I think you guys talked about it in this session, right? And that was, so this poor grad student who's here went through, I don't know, 60 hysterectomies, trash 80. I forget how many we did. It was a lot. And every piece of trash. And he, as we're going through it, he made the stylets into a little heart there, which is super cute. So we brought the engineers. This is us in the operating room frying chicken with the Bovi, because they did like really detailed stuff, like when your foot is on the pedal, how much electric dot is that versus when it's off. And when we did our audits of hysterectomies, we actually recorded how much time we were using cautery versus not. Turns out none of that matters at all, like compared to all the other terrible stuff in the operating room. This, another gratuitous picture of the child, because I knew you would like it. So this is the baby study where we looked at C-sections versus vaginal deliveries. Isn't it so cute? Thank you. No, he was so fat. Direct OP 9-6 vaginal delivery, vacuum, 5 pop-offs, episiotomy. It was terrible. Okay, so are this, so just, are the slides big for you? Or are they like a little part of the screen, or is it fine? Is the visualization fine?
I mean, I think you could do slide share.
Should I? Okay, I was afraid if I did that. Oh yeah, that's a little better, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Now there's some actual graphs, so it kind of matters a tiny bit more. Okay, I am gonna permit me for a few minutes to talk about a few of the findings, because they really changed the way I approached this. So did we get to the thing where this phase where I was giving lecture after lecture after lecture? We're about to do. So as I started to do this, I started to get requests to give lectures all over the place to all sorts of people. And I just said, yes, 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 yes. And so here is delivering an infant in the US. So this is C-section blue, vaginal delivery orange. So not surprisingly, C-section has a bigger environmental footprint, but I mean, I don't have to tell all of you an indicated C-section is a fantastic thing. We all know that. But the interesting thing is what parts of a C-section are more impactful than a vaginal delivery. And this is just greenhouse gas emissions. So you can see the HVAC system, the OR is way higher than in a laboring room because there's more air turnovers per hour. Obviously, we use more machines for a C-section, but you can see the materials is also a lot more significant for the C-section. We looked at custom packs. So all these different birth packs all over the world, actually, who puts what in their custom packs. I wanted to like see the different size of custom packs and then understand what the environmental impact of them was and what the components were. Big shocker here. Spoiler alert, plastic isn't the worst thing, cotton is. The sweet little soft blue cotton towels that I didn't even think, that didn't bother me in the slightest. Okay, turnout. So by weight, this is what's in the custom packs. Blue is plastic. The gowns basically were the biggest by weight in a delivery baby custom pack. The global warming effect, orange. So it's the cotton towels, has a out of size global warming effect relative to the plastic. So here's by weight, you can see the blue is way more important, but when you look at the actual global warming effect, the cotton is more important. And that's because it turns out cotton is like just really toxic to grow cotton. There's tons of pesticides and nitrogen fertilizers and and plastic, it is from fossil fuels, but then you're going to bury it. So it's not getting, it's not releasing as much greenhouse gas as cotton. Why does this matter? So when you do your cases, you know how all the blue towels are stuck on the drapes and you just throw it all in the trash? If you take it off of your drapes and you throw it in the linens, it gets rewashed and reused. It doesn't come back onto your surgical tray. It goes into anesthesia. You know how they have those blue towels? It goes to car washes, other places. It gets reused over and over. When you do that, you significantly reduce the impact of your supplies. Who knew? So that was a big eye-opening thing that we found out from that. So we got a bunch of momentum going. And so then we did this crazy, insane hysterectomy study, which you've already looked at. And basically the take-home messages from that are cotton isn't as big of a deal when you have, no, cotton was up here. I'm going to skip this. Cotton's still a big deal, but this is a little break. Pause. Okay, so I'm going through my slides and all these old talks and everything. I come upon this slide, same baby. What was the point of this slide? I made this slide to make a point, and to this day, I looked back at the study and I was like, what on earth could I have possibly been talking about? But I wanted to put this in here because it's evening and I just showed a bunch of boring slides. And so now I wanted to put a fun, quirky slide. But look at the way his ears stick out. I'm going to show you the final result from that baby later. So spoiler alert, you're going to get to see that later. Okay. So this is the material composition of our hysterectomy. You can see most of our trash is plastic. Oh, and then I went backwards for those slides, but the cotton has a bigger effect on environmental impacts. Okay, but I think you guys already looked through this. This slide right here it represents a bazillion years. This slide right here is like so much of my freaking time. Here's all I want to say about it. Obviously, robotic and laparoscopic hysterectomies, minimally invasive surgeries have a much greater environmental impact than open and vaginal and natural orifice surgeries. And the reason for that is all of the stuff we throw away. So that big light green box is all of your ligatures and all your harmonic scalpel, all those fun things that we throw away. The thing to know about life cycle analysis is that it's based on cost or on the raw ingredients. And we tried to get the surgical supply companies to tell us how they made these things, but it wasn't going to happen. So it's based on cost. So this could be a wild overestimate. And further research is needed to really find out how they make these instruments. We think that it's close to what it needs to be. The way life cycle analysis works is you look at the cost and then you have the environmental impact of something that's like that costs this much. It's hard to explain, but it's not a terrible way of doing it. It's the only way you can do it without knowing like how exactly they make the instruments. But that was a big take home point, is that throwing out our instruments is a really big deal, and that the anesthetic gases are a really big deal. The other take home point is that like recycling, you can't even see on here. We spend so much time in recycling programs. And so like after I did these studies, I basically don't waste a single breath on recycling anymore. I mean, I do recycle at home, but actually at our hospital, we have recycling bins, and all of that's going into municipal trash because China changed their requirements for purity of recycling materials. So like at your hospital, you might not be recycling either, just so you know. But you can see how outpaced the throwing away instruments and anesthetic gases are. HVAC is still really important. C-sections, obviously, we're not using throwing away instruments or using anesthetic gases. So that was a larger, that had a bigger impact in the C-section than it does for hysterectomy. But I learned a ton from doing this research. And so after I did all these studies, so here I am, I have a kid that's on the right, that's my 6-year-old. I've got a 6-year-old, I've got a 3-year-old. I am giving talks all over the country. I'm doing this research. I'm working full time as an OBGYN. And one day I walked into my kitchen post call and I opened the door and one of my kids looks up at me and he looks up and he goes, "Mom, are you leaving?" First words out of his mouth. I had just come home and he wanted to prepare himself for when I was going to leave, basically. And it was really sad. And it was a huge wake-up call. And around this same time, actually, it must have been earlier than this. So I was on the board of Practice Green Health, which is like the big organization that does this. And they had this thing they really wanted me to go to. I had a 6-week-old and I went to it and I remember pumping all day and sticking my little breast milk in their fridge. And on the plane home, I realized I had left all my breast milk in wherever, I don't even know where it was, whatever state I was in. And it was so sad. And to be away from my 6-week-old and to forget the milk. And so what I found is that all of this cool work and cool research was keeping me away from my kids. And that sucked and it wasn't okay. And I was giving a talk with this exact slide to our sustainability group. And when I pulled up this slide, I got verklempt. I got all choked up and I was like, oh my goodness, someday, son, none of this will be yours. And I was sad that the planet's trashed, but I was sad because I was looking at a picture of my kid and not being with my kid. That's what was really making me feel like crying, was like the separation from my kids. And so let me see what the next slide. So I paused. So so at the same time that all this happened, we had been doing this huge red bag waste reduction effort at the hospital that all got thrown away in one fell swoop by administrators because they found a syringe in the regular landfill and they decided to scrap the whole program. We're going to put red bag waste everywhere. And so I learned a lot about top down, bottom up action, and also about how waste segregation can go, how it can go wrong, why it can go wrong, and also about how you really have to have buy-in and education at the top. You really have to have eco-literacy from your C-suite. And so at this point, for lots of different reasons, I kind of made a little bit of a pause on my sustainability journey. I had a whole bunch of clinical stuff that I needed to do. So at that point, I was doing a whole bunch of call. I had just dipped into pelvic ultrasound. And over a course of a couple of years, I just became a pelvic ultrasound specialist, stopped doing calls, stopped delivering babies, stopped doing hysterectomies, basically became a radiologist, reduced my hours to 70%, and then had time to do this again. That's the short story of it. I also, during that time, became a triathlete and joined an Irish band and did a lot of the things that I wanted to do in life that I couldn't because I was having kids, being trained, etc. So those things all got kind of worked out. And so when I got my time a little bit less, I started to really be able to think about this again. I hope this isn't boring. I don't want it to be boring. Okay. Here's a book that really electrified me and I highly recommend. So one of the things about climate change that is that when combined with being absent from your children makes it so overwhelming is like, it's happened, right? It's clearly going to happen. Lots of people are already dying and are going to die. And it's hard to see a way out of it, especially when you look at sort of like, if you look at Homo sapiens as a species, at what we've done, this book gave me hope. This book taught me that hope isn't thinking the future is going to be different. Hope is just the capacity to imagine a different future. It's just imagination. You're not saying it's going to happen. You're just saying, this could happen. And this book basically spells out how to stop climate change in the US. So it spells out how we could make the United States of America not carbon neutral. So it is actually possible. So knowing that got me back on the horse, to be honest. And so when I got back on the horse, I didn't sort through trash, and I didn't move around any trash containers. Instead, what I did is I aimed my sights at administration, policy, decision makers. So I took that fellowship that Ali mentioned, learned a lot about all the stuff that, all the people who are running medicine who aren't doctors, all the those people, you know what I'm talking about. I forget even their names. Administrators, yeah, they get trained in this stuff. They have a training that we don't have on how to move change, how to influence people, how to be a professional. I don't know. So I've started to really focus on that a lot more, and focus on how to push levers. And so a top-down, bottom-up approach has been the new frame of mind. The other thing is that I really think that thinking of facing climate change as personal responsibility, I read a lot. There's a podcast called Drilled, which I also highly recommend. Jane has listened to it. I see her nodding. So good.
Yeah, Amy Westervelt and I follow each other on Twitter.
Love it. Love it. Your BFFs is what you're trying to say. That's great. Yeah. The fossil fuel industry has played a role in painting the climate change narrative as one of personal responsibility. And the problem with painting as personal responsibility is that is never going to get us out of it, right? If all of your choices swill fossil fuel, you can't choose your way out of this. And so learning that our world was designed to consume fossil fuel with intent, over time, really changed my focus in that we have to design our world with the intent to not use fossil fuels. And that's going to involve a lot of intent, a lot of decisions from the top. For example, desflurane, one of the anesthetic gases, is like 2,000 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And at McGee, I gave a lecture to our anesthesia, actually to all of UPMC anesthesiologists, and the McGee anesthesia division took desflurane off the formulary. The chief said, it's more expensive, and look at all this stuff, I'm taking it off, last straw. And so that was that, what I mean? It was like, I didn't have to convince it was gone. So sometimes these top-down decisions are really effective. So anyway, I decided that the collective physicians' voices were really powerful, and that physicians don't feel like they know enough about it, but they're so smart, they can be educated in like 5 seconds. And so we started the group Clinicians for Climate Action. These are things I learned from the fellowship, like things I would like: make a logo, give yourselves names. Like, I'm the director, I'm the chair, and there's co-chair, and then there's directors of all these different groups. So we started just doing all this administrative-y stuff. Then we wrote this letter and we sent it to Leslie Davis, the CEO. She emailed me back in 12 hours. I happened to be camping at the time and didn't see her email immediately. But very shortly when I got back, I did. And this letter happened to hit her desk at the same time that some letters came in from some of the activist groups in the city, who also nudge, nudge, wink, wink, I talked to please send a letter on the same day. And then also, and another physician who had been really high up in administration went to her and said, we should be doing something about this. I would like to do something. So it all happened. It all got together, got people activated. And then here's our group. What happened is we made regular meeting times. We gave titles. We became accountable to each other. We used, talks, we used, here's the thing, physicians are just so freaking effective. Like, it doesn't take much. And then boom, you have all these smart people doing stuff. And so we just got tons of momentum. One thing I learned from all of this was I personally have to have fun and have to feel connected for these people for this to be fun in my life and to be something I want to do. If I'm going to be trying to fight climate change, we are going to go down in a ball of fire. I want it to be with people who are super fun. So that's kind of the way. So I've been surrounding myself by people who I really like, and I make sure that we actually go out to dinner or have a meeting where we're in person, have some swag. One of our meetings, I hired some live musicians and then joined them to play a few tunes. We had some beer, that kind of stuff really matters to people and culturally connects them and invests them in the process. And so we got all these people doing all kinds of stuff now. The organization has got, UPMC is doing all kinds of great stuff. Okay, I want to pause so we can chit chat and ask questions. Okay, you guys, these are the fruits of my labor. So on the left, I call him Bridgerton because that's what he looks like when he's fencing. That's that little chubby one next to the dirt. And then this one who is on mock trial, he's a fake court of law. That is the in utero one you saw. I think, yeah, that's my last slide. So now where this all stands for me is right now, I'm probably about to get paid to do it. After all this time, this is just about to happen. Yay, exactly. And I really have a new attitude about it that I love. It's really adding to the joy in my life. So I'm going to pause and take a breath. And let's just go to your chat if you don't mind, and type in the cursor and just type how you feel right now. I'm going to type how I feel right now. And maybe something that struck you. Fun. Oh, that's so great. Hopeful, energized, excited. I said that too. Med student, like you're not a med student, or, oh, you are a med student. Okay. Cool. Hopeful. I'm glad you're here and thank you. Aw, you too. Motivated. I want to carve out time in my tending job to do this. Yeah. This is it really, oh, and there's somebody else. Oh, cool. Let's see. I feel like this is an AA meeting. Sustainability for unicorns.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
I never knew there were other ones. Honestly, I've always had this terrible imposter syndrome because I always feel like there are people that have qualifications that are much more pertinent than me to do this. But I'm like, I guess all it takes is for somebody who has the energy to read a little bit. But I've always had this imposter syndrome. So I'm glad that there's other OB-GYNs out there doing this.
Absolutely. You're in the right place.
So that was really fun. I would love for you guys to unmute yourself. So Marie, you're a med student or no?
No, I've been in practice now for 15 years, also since I got my first one.
Love that. You've held up well.
Yeah, thank you.
So teaching the med students has been really interesting. So I teach them that's the takeaway. I think that is a big takeaway, is that for the first 5 years I gave talks. I remember somebody saying to me, you give a lot of talks for someone who hasn't done much research. I was like, there's a lot to talk about,
I think your resume and the papers that you've been on, no, we absolutely give you
caught
that
up.
credential.
It's caught up. No, it's caught up, but I gave grand rounds on this before I'd published a damn thing.
That's great.
Yeah. So yeah.
I have to ask, being at Vermont, did you meet Bill McKibben, or did you have talks with him, or?
Well, it was 10,000 years ago.
No.
Was he there? Well, it was in 2001.
He's been in Burlington since forever.
Bill McKibben. No, that's such a shame. Because also my husband was he was in ecology. That's what brought me there, actually. I kind of hated the program. He was in ecology in grad school there. He was with that guy who runs long distances on like beer or honey or whatever, running with antelopes. I don't know if you know. Anyway, I never met Bill McKibben, sadly. I mean, I was a resident. I never even saw the leaves in Vermont. This is before the 80-hour work week. Yeah, you know how that was. Residency, it's all a blur. It was a nightmare. Yeah. Do you guys mind? We have a few minutes. Is it okay if you each say a sentence about yourself?
Sure.
Okay. Allie, we all know about, so we can skip Allie, right? I'll just say your name if that's okay, Jane. I know they all know you too, but I'd love to hear.
Yeah, so I'm in Rochester with Nancy. Nancy, so great to see you. And I just joined in academic practice, so Noe, I feel that where I've given a lot of talks and I've never been in an academic setting, but now I am in an academic setting. But I've been thinking about this, like I said, ever since my twins were born. They're 15 now. And I actually moved to Rochester because of the climate. I was in Los Angeles where Kelly is. And I just, you know, I remember listening to Kai Risdall on Marketplace in 2008 when I was pregnant, and I was, you know, on one of those terrible LA commutes to my job. And I was like, no, this is not going to work out well for Southern California.
Right. You were like, I'm going to plunge into the Pacific Ocean any minute.
And no, not that. They're going to run out of water, but no, so you know, but I was married and he's from SoCal, so I had to wait until the kids turned 14 until I could move away. So that was last year.
Wow. Cool. How about you, Nancy?
Hi, I'm Nancy. I am also in Rochester. I am in private practice, and I just have an interest, and I'm at the point in my career where I'm looking for a new area of inspiration and focus. And I think this is a direction I really want to move in, is feeling like I could make an impact here, you know, as opposed to just patient after patient after patient, trying to kind of churning through the day. Yeah, that's
Nice. Yeah, we're all feeling that, I'm sure. How about you, Savita?
Hi everyone, I'm the med student. I'm out in Washington, D.C. at George Washington University. I am between my third and fourth year also doing my MPH, and I'm applying into OBGYN later this year. So I am so excited to have met all of you today because I do a lot of work in the climate and health space with medical students for a sustainable future. I'm the executive chair this year and last year. But I have been looking for this community for so long, and I'm so glad to have found you all because it is a small but mighty group, and I'm so excited to kind of grow into it and hopefully find a residency program that will help me cultivate these interests. So thank you for having me.
Savita, did you have anything to do with the online curriculum? You did that, didn't you? Can you brag? Tell people about that.
Wait, the one that from last week that you heard? The one from last week that you heard about, or
didn't you make an online curriculum?
So the curriculum work that I have been a part of, at least at my own medical school, was developing a 4-year theme for the MD program, which actually was approved last week by our curriculum dean. So that is kind of what I do on the ground at GW. I guess with MS4SF, we have I think what you might be talking about is like the repository of information for different specialties. My colleague started that, Natasha Sood, she's wonderful, but very much involved kind of in like the back ends of kind of translating that to patient-facing information now. But yeah.
Cool. So more climate medicine though.
More climate medicine. I think the healthcare sustainability part is definitely a domain within that resource. There's like a health systems science part of that. So I think it definitely touches on kind of all of the different elements that you were describing earlier in that slide.
Cool. Marie, you're next on my screen.
So I'm in Chicago, and I've been active doing the climate action stuff with mostly kind of like, I work part-time, so I worked a lot with my kids' school district, like doing things like starting composting in schools and things like that. And a few years ago, I was like, I really need to merge my two identities together. So it's just been fairly recent that I've been trying to do a lot more in terms of climate health, and my mentor has gotten me into environmental health. And so I've developed a few lectures on things like increased risk for stillbirth, preterm labor with air pollution and excess heat and things like that. So that's how I've been trying to kind of merge my two worlds. But it's always, such a dichotomy, because I feel like at home I conserve everything, and then I go to work and I'm like, using a gazillion plastic speculums every day, and asking people, please don't give me the ones that have at least a battery integrated. But yeah, it's a struggle to feel like the stuff that I do, I mean, whatever, we all knew that individual actions matter only so little, but it feels like I would love for my my system, which is a huge one, Advocate Aurora, to lean more towards reusables, et cetera, et cetera.
Cool. How about you, Amanda?
Hi, I'm at the University of Pittsburgh with Allie, who I can at least partially credit for like drawing me into something that, like you, Marie, I always felt like it was a personal, it was like on my personal side of my priorities and really, I'm sorry I was late. I was trying to hustle my 5-year-old to bed so I could get on. But I remember like when I first like I've learned about climate change and how important it is in waves, and when it really hit me and I really had to reevaluate my priorities was when my husband was like, well, how many kids are we going to have, because you know that's like the biggest impact on climate change that we can make as a couple. And I was like, okay, let me like really think about this, because that's like, you know, talk about like what is my personal responsibility, what am I going to put, you know, how am I going to prioritize this? I ended up having twins, so it was like a moot point. But I got my 3 kids.
You lucked out. You lucked out.
I lucked out. So, but anyway, so I really started merging this when Allie was doing all of her work, and I was like, oh, this is really important to me, and it is so critical in the healthcare space. And also, just I started this little pessary project that is still very much under works. We were throwing away all these pessaries instead of autoclaving them, which we'd always done for many years. And it really bothered me. And I was like, this is like many pessaries, and I don't know why we can't just use them. And then I got really deep in the woods and why that was happening. And that was kind of my gateway into being like, I think this is, you know, part of my purpose in medicine is to integrate this.
So cool. Love to hear that. And last but not least, Kelly.
Not least, not least.
Hey, I'm Kelly. Great talk. Thanks for having the session. So I'm a MIGS in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai. I'm a faculty member there, and it's a huge hospital. I'm division director. And I think, you know, I echo a lot of what Jane said. I moved from the East Coast after spending 10 years in Boston, and moving to California, I thought we're going to be green and we're going to be resourceful, and it just wasn't the case. And yet it feels so fragile out here. So really my first project was taking on the red bags, because we threw almost 100% of our stuff from the OR in the red bags, or 100% of our things from the ORs into the red bags. And that took a couple years to get off the ground, but now has been rolled out. And to your point really about getting to the C-suite, like that has really been a stepwise progression about getting this to the top and having them take an interest so that they don't undo all the hard work that everybody's doing on the ground. But I am happy to say I have had audiences with the C-suite. We removed the desflurane vaporizers just last week from the anesthesia machines, and they just signed up with Practice Green Health and created a C-suite sustainability, you know, initiative committee just last week. So I'm really excited to see some momentum, and I have no publications in this space at all, but I've just
No, you have OBG management this
You
week.
have
at the
JMIG.
American Stuff.
Yeah, you have JMIG. What are you talking about?
No, you're right. Okay, no research, but I just talk about it, right? So just talk about it. Yes, I have podcasts, some reviews. And I think talking about it, the data is there. I mean, and California has data, LAX has data on how close you are to the aircraft and what your odds ratio of preterm birth is. So the data is there. It's just telling people, I feel like, and that's really been my passion, you know, for the last couple of years. So I'm actually giving a grand rounds at GW on March 8th. So Savita, if you log into the OBGYN grand rounds, I'll be doing it there. But I've kind of been on this like national tour, I'm calling it, of just telling people the data and hopefully spurring conversations like these.
So
Kelly,
Kelly,
thank you for your work, because I've definitely presented your work to our C-suite as well. and showing them what those life cycle analyses and waste audits look like.
They're so helpful. The engineers did all the math. I did a lot of work, but it was cheerleading. They did all the math.
Don't sell yourself short.
I think we think of, because the way we traditionally think about science and medicine, this doesn't fit into what we've been taught is academic practices. And what I've learned is there's still a science, there's still a way to do this that's really effective that we can build upon with each other. And it's a different enterprise than basic science. There's parts of it that don't feel like science. So, for example, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about lately is how the fossil fuel industry really used the advertising industry and human psychology to create a culture of fossil fuel consumption. And to undo that is going to require some similar techniques and skills. And we are the most believed people, except for nurses, right? But if you look at who people believe about things, physicians are right up there. So there's a total role for this, even if it's not scientific publications.
Yeah.
I think the other role that I really see in MIGS is because our field has always been technology, but it's industries pushed us towards single-use technology and regulations, and I think I do consulting with industry, and I think the supply chain breakdown during COVID, it's the perfect time to tell them we don't want their disposables anymore. Like my roomie tips went away, and I'm like, okay, where is my reusable tip? I'm tired of throwing these away, and you can't even keep them for me in a sustainable fashion anymore. So I think, my role in MIGS, and I'm on the AAGL board this year, and the theme of the meeting is going to be sustainability in surgery, which is really exciting because the program director is from France. So he's really into this. And I think this is our opportunity to push back on industry and say, these are advertisements. This does not affect patient safety. This is not about surgical site infections. We want reusables. And I'm really hoping to kind of drive the field, in that direction.
Kelly, that is fantastic. I did not know that was a theme this year, so I'll have to absolutely go to AAGL if I can. But I feel like in the Euroguide space, there are definitely some people, Amanda and myself, who want to do that as well. So it's really great to hear that, pushing industry is going to be a huge part of this, and we need voices to do that.
Well, and I'm going to do a life cycle analysis with an ER colleague. So we're kind of crossing specialty lines. And we're going to do that Columbia University boot camp in, we missed, or we didn't get in for the February, March cohort. So we're doing the August, October cohort.
That's one of those engineers that I took into the OR who's teaching that.
Oh, that's so great.
Yes. She was standing right. She's not the one who said it was the coolest thing she'd ever seen in her life, but she was standing next to her.
Amanda and I we're doing the boot camp now, and shocker, but so far people really don't want to tell me, what the V-Care is made of and their specs. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, we knew we'd get pushback, but it's
Wait, you mean the manufacturers don't want to tell you?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll see how the people who manufacture Pelosi, there's a different group because Pelosi's aren't even made anymore, but somebody makes them. So maybe they'll give us some info, but it is an uphill battle for sure. Yeah.
Unrelated, I kind of wanted to say that I think it's interesting. I've been to a few of these, never with OB-GYNs, but this is the second group in the last few months where somebody from the group has said that they're basically a climate refugee. There was another nurse interested in climate health that I met recently, and she was saying she just moved from, I think it was New Mexico, to Wisconsin because she was thinking they were going to run out of water sooner than everybody thought. So I think it'll be interesting to see kind of if healthcare practitioners are on the leading edge of what's going to be a more widespread movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like the next battle for us. Well, I'm just conscious of the fact that it's 9:01 and you guys are busy OBGYN, so.
We can certainly end the conversation here, but thank you so much.
Well,
Noe.
I have one thing to ask. Is there's 2 conferences coming up, and I'm curious if any of you on this session are going to either the one with the specialty societies next month, the consortium, medical specialties consortium.
No, can you tell us about it?
I guess from my understanding, it's like all of the specialty societies have gotten together and created a consortium. Nate DeNicola represents us. And I have found him not to be the most sharing of persons. He has been the ACOG representative to telehealth and also for climate.
Mhm.
And he doesn't collab. But he's our representative to that. Anyway, I signed up virtually, and it sounds like Savita, you're going.
Yeah, so MS4SF, the med student group, actually also serves on the steering committee for the Medical Society Consortium for Climate and Health. It's going to be a wonderful event. I've been going virtually the past few years, and it's in Virginia this year. So hopefully I'll be able to go in person. But it's a really great opportunity to participate in advocacy, and highly recommend it.
Allie, is it possible to send us a link to that?
Yes.
And
yeah, I see it.
also-
Savita gave it to us,
Okay.
and I will absolutely send it out.
And then also the grand rounds, was it Marie who's giving grand rounds? One of us.
Kelly.
Kelly. Yeah, Kelly. Yeah. Would it be possible? Is that something other people can listen to, Kelly? Could we get a link for that?
I think so. Yeah, I'll send it when I get it. I don't think I have it yet.
Could you send it to Allie, and Allie, could you send it to all of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And then is anyone going to Clean Med? I guess the Pittsburgh girls are.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Is there a virtual option for CleanMed? I was looking today. I can't make it in person, but I mean, the sessions look awesome.
I that is a good question. I think that there is some virtual, but I know a lot of it is like discussion based.
I'm giving a virtual talk. There's a couple of talks leading up to it that are virtual, including one that I'm doing on the psychology of climate change. Love to have you there. It's free.
Oh, I'm coming. I'll be there in person.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay, cool. The virtual one I'm doing is before Clean Med, but then.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good. Well, we'll definitely have to meet each other. Allie, have you and Jane met in person?
No, but I'll meet you there.
Oh, good. I get me in on dinner whenever it's happening.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Thanks for having me, Allie. I hope to join these. I missed the first few, but hopefully I can be there for the next couple.
Yeah, Kelly's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much.
very much.
And it was very good to meet you all. I will certainly send out an email with that information, and have a good rest of your evening. We'll see you again in another couple of months.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Buddy.
Bye.